Woo dang! Welcome back to the Red Bill Performance channel. Hope y'all have had a good one. I enjoyed the time off. I got a little relaxation, a little rest. What has happened here? All right, let's get you caught up a little bit. No, somebody kicked the pile. Not good. This is Project Dopey Dope. I'm not talking about the shop vac. I'm talking about the powder choke behind it. It is our 2002 Ford F350 with a 7.3 power. Well, it currently doesn't have anything, but it's supposed to be a 7.3 Powerstroke. Now, there was nothing wrong with this truck. This was a functioning, running truck. Didn't have a problem in the world. I mean, you know, getting up there in the miles a little bit, I think it's right around 170,000. And, you know, good running truck, solid unit. It's got a mild built transmission. You know, it's not stock, just, you know, been freshened up. Has like some, there's like a GPZ clutch kit in it, I think, maybe. Not 100% sure on the build of the transmission. Does have billet torque converter. Yeah, see it right there? You know, that's billet. So, you know, decent transmission. I actually forgot that that had been done to this truck until I pulled the motor out and I was sitting there staring at it and I was just like, well, that's billet. Oh yeah. So, you know, got that going for us. But yeah, like I said, there was nothing wrong with it. You know, it's had a few leaks and stuff on it like that. I mean, it had a little bit of oil pan seepage, a little bit of rear main seepage. Honestly, wasn't that bad. Like, that wasn't even causing a drip. Most of the saturation that you see on the block is from fuel leaks, like, because the bushings in these constantly go out, like, I don't know, honestly, like every 25,000 miles. You need to pull all these lines off, and which they make a kit to replace these and do better lines, and we honestly probably should do that right now. Might talk to the owner about that, but anyway, might upgrade these. But yeah, like every 25,000 miles, like little rubber bushings that are in here that actually seal these just vibrate and get destroyed, and then it's puking fuel everywhere. And we just replaced these, like, I don't know, a couple thousand miles ago, because as you can see, it was puking everywhere. But anyway, brief overview. That's what it's supposed to be. We're doing a EBV delete, getting rid of that pedestal, just putting on a non-EBV, and that's exhaust back pressure valve, which is this little suga actuator here. We're getting rid of that and putting in just a pedestal that ain't got that. We're putting on a bigger battery turbo that doesn't have the EBV on the back half. So it's a non-EBV turbo. So we got that going for us. Putting a Banks exhaust brake on it. Putting some manifolds on it. And, you know, when we're doing injectors, head studs, you know, doing the full workup on it and addressing any leaks. We're giving the entire engine like a good once over, checking everything out, sealing it back up. A 67, 72 KC turbo upgrade, you know, because who don't like bigger swirly boys? You know, we love our Nagasaki noisemakers around here. And like I said, just other than that, just a general freshen up. Replacing the driver's side manifold because we had done our own, you know, ramming EGR in there, which, I mean, it worked, but not where we wanted it. Just kind of what happened while the truck was in frame. So, and I mean, these are relatively cheap manifolds. I mean, they're $100 a pop, but the casting on this one was also just horrendous. The port alignment, the port match, horrendous. Just absolutely not good. And this is still a Dorman manifold. It's newer though. Well, it's brand new. But they have changed the casting a little bit, so the port alignment is a little bit better. So we got that going for us. And it doesn't have a giant hole in the side where we, shoehorn an EGT probe right in the side of it. So it's got that going for it. Because we are moving the EGT probe, we're going to be relocating the pre-turbo EGT probe up here. I want to attempt to drill right in through there and thread this spot of the up pipe, so we have our pre-turbo EGT probe right here for tuning purposes and really towing purposes, just way you can all around keep a better eye on things. So, and the EGT probe was here, and like I said, it got put there because that was just our easy access through the fender well at the time when he wanted it put in. And that's just, it's just how things devolved at that point in time. That's just how things came together. Yeah, that's just a brief overview, a brief catch up where we are. We got the engine out. We are going to get this cleaned up, do a little bit of rust repair. That's all going to be coming. We don't have the injectors on hand yet. We've got the H-pop. We have the new fuel line kit, like the high pressure oil line kit. We do have that on hand. And it's the one with the crossover, so you can balance it out. Like, we're gonna do studs, we're gonna do new glow plugs in it, new injectors. We're waiting on the injectors. So that's why I'm not diving into the top end of this yet. Because whenever I do the studs, I want to do everything up here at the same time. Like between fuel lines, studs, glow plug, I just want to do it all at once. So we'll do all of it, do the H-pop, we'll do all that once the injectors come in. So we're waiting on that. And the rear main seal and resealing the oil pan will be done once the truck is going back in the engine, because obviously I can't get to this to clean this up and reseal this while the engine is here, so it has to be hanging when we do that. But what I can do right now, what I have the stuff to do, is take these manifolds and get the port match done on them. Once I get the port match done on them, we can get them back on the truck. We can get the up pipes back on. I can get that one drilled and ready for the EGT probe. We can get all that back on the truck and ready to rock and roll. So that will be the goal for today. Get the ports cleaned up on these and get them back on the engine. Then after that, we can dive in here and take care of everything else as parts come in. Well, we just went over the atrocious port alignment of the old manifolds to the head, and we just looked at the new manifold and its alignment and how it's a little bit better. So without further to do, I'm gonna get my little station rigged up over here. We're gonna get rigged up and set up, and we're gonna go about touching up, cleaning up, and truing up the ports of these manifolds and the alignment, so we can actually get some better flow, maybe possibly help the EGTs a little bit, and get a little bit of performance gain, maybe. I mean, probably not, but maybe. So I'm gonna jump into getting set up and be right back with y'all. Things have happened. I've went back and forth between the gasket and the head and the manifold and the head like 50 times, seeing exactly where I want it to shift to, what I want it to do to get the ports to line up the best, and what I'm gonna have to eat off. And through the back and forth and this and that, this is what I've come to. As you can see, this gasket lines up fairly decent with the ports. And if I just remove this said gasket and bring you down here, you can see, I think you can, I'll get you where the angle of the light, see that white paint? Very little, I mean, it's very little, that little bit of white paint. It's on each one of them. Which this one right here turns out to be the most, is this one. that little bit of white paint, which this one has the most on it, which it was this one that was going to have the most to eat off of it. But now it is this one. Because I took the alignment hole, which is this hole. And the alignment hole, see, all the holes are like this, are this 1/2 inch size. All the holes are this 1/2 inch size except for the alignment hole. This hole in these manifolds normally fits super tight on the bolt. But I took it and drilled it out to 1/2 inch, and I did this in steps. Like, I slowly moved it up till I got enough room to get the manifold aligned exactly where I want it, so I didn't have to eat as much out. And 1/2 inch, which is the same size as the rest of the hole, is what I come to get the manifold where I wanted it. And if I hadn't done this, where this one has the most to be ate off of it, but still leaves me quite a bit of meat, and it's gonna seal good. If I hadn't have done that, where this one here has this little bit here to eat off, it'd have been this much plus that. I mean, this one would have been ate halfway through the material right here. So drilling out this hole to allow me, because these other three actually lined up fairly decent, just this was the worst one. And it was the same way on the other manifold. Just this manifold isn't as bad as our old one. And I mean, this is just my use case, you know, my head, this manifold on this given day. This is what needed to be done to get this one right. So if you have one of these, yours might not be exactly the same because every casting is slightly different, and then you might have a totally different cast than this one. So, you know, this is one of those things where you're just going to have to take time. You're going to have to, you know, if you're doing this, you're going to have to take your time, be patient, and never be scared to just step back sometimes and just, you know, look, just look at it. Because sometimes that's what you got to do to figure things out, is just step back, take a moment, and just look at it. And a lot of times your problems will work themselves out. You know, it'll just come together. You'll figure it out. But like I was saying, if I hadn't have bored this hole out, if I'd have left it tight as my alignment hole, then about half of this flange I'd have to eat out of here. And I just really didn't want to do it. And then that would also cause alignment issues with my gasket, because where that bolt was holding the gasket was holding it more, like the gasket would have been this way. Like where it was holding the gasket before was like right there, which would have constituted eating a lot more material, like nothing out of this one. This one actually lined up like just like, I mean, dead nuts. But I'd had to eat out a lot of material, that one, and then this one. I'd have had to eat a bunch of material out of that one. But just simply by opening up that hole, allowing it where the gasket can come over a little bit, and then the manifold can go this way on the head a little bit, you know, it just shifts everything this way. It actually make the gasket line up a lot better, and the manifold's gonna go on the head a lot better, and it's gonna seal a lot better than before. And I don't have to eat near as much meat off this one by itself. And like I showed with this slid over before, where it would have been held in place, like sized up good with that one, I'd have had to eat more off of, I'd have had to eat more off of this one, and this one combined. And just simply by that, drilling out that hole a little bit bigger and shifting the gasket just a little bit, it made it to where the center ones, almost nothing has to be ate. And really, I could probably get away with not even touching them. I'm just matching them to the gasket, because these ports are way bigger than the ports on the head. So I could probably honestly not touch these two center ones and they'd be perfect anyway. And you know, it'd be only where I need to touch up the end ones. But this is cast, and with, you know, this unit here, this little bit here ain't gonna be no problem. Like, it ain't gonna be no problem either way, but this is gonna give me my best results. So that might be what you run into if you ever order you one of these Dorman manifolds. That might be the same problem. You might have to take your alignment hole, make it bigger so you can actually move the manifold around. You know, you just have to pay attention to where the manifold's at when you go to tighten it up on there. That's going to be on you, because you're not going to have an alignment hole anymore. But, you know, it's that give and take, you know, that you whenever you're searching for every bit of performance, every bit of efficiency, this is what you do. So I'm gonna get in here, clean these out a little bit, and then I'll get back with y'all once I'm putting it on the truck, or maybe after I have it on the truck. Well, not the truck, but the engine, and then we can look at it and see its fitment, see how much better its fitment is on there. This took a combination of tactics to get everything good enough. But we are, in fact, good enough. We'll start over here with the replacement one. As y'all can see by this one, and we done went over this, port alignment was, you know, terrible. You can tell by the soot ring there and the soot ring there just how far off this was. I mean, look at that. It was almost burnt outside of the gasket. And that wasn't, like, there's nothing I could do about it. With the alignment hole being non-adjusted and just the casting being the way that it is, that right there is literally, I mean, I don't know if you'll look down through the holes there. That is with the holes perfectly lined up right there. I mean, that's just where that manifold set on the truck. And I mean, atrocious lineup. Just not good. Flo was probably not happy here. But now we step back to this one. And as you can see, I've got that one matching up pretty darn good. Here's the edges of it. That one's matching up good. So with the combination of porting this manifold and then opening up that hole on here, see, got play, I will be able to wiggle this one into place, get the gasket lined up, get the manifold lined up. That one will be so much better than that one. Yes. And this one, a little bit different story. Took a combination thing. I was gonna take this one and port match it, which as you can see, I don't really need to port match it because it's pretty good now. But I was gonna tune up the ports on this one. But thankfully, took my time and I really looked at it. And let's just pull this one out. Is this one of the bad ones? Yeah, it's kind of bad. If y'all see like how it's so chunky down here at the bottom, I mean, all these are like that. There, I'll just pull all these out. I'll just get them out of the way. Right, yeah, see how oblong this hole is? And like down this way on the casting? And this one's kind of egg shaped and this one's real chunky. Like this one's real bad. But like all these holes are already just as big as the gasket, if not bigger than the actual steel, you know, sealing ring. Like that one is like, so I had to stop myself because I mean, this is an older casting that matches the time and date of this one. And this one is atrocious too. I mean, as far as where they are, like the length and the spread of the manifold, it is way better than that one. But man, these ports are just not good. Like, I mean, not good. They're oval, they're huge. So I can't really take material out, and before I cut the gasket, the only way to get it to actually do good would be if I ate out like that soot ring and that soot ring, and that gasket was a little different than the old gasket, so I was gonna have to eat a bunch out of this one too. And there's no need for that because like I said, these holes, like this is the closest one to the actual gasket size. These three holes are bigger than the gasket, and gonna have trouble getting them to actually seal up and not leak. I can't believe they weren't leaking before. That was just dumb luck that they weren't leaking before, that they actually managed to seal. But we're looking at running a little higher boost. We're gonna have a little more back pressure than before, so, and we're trying to make the truck more efficient, so we don't need all this nonsense of the ports not just, well, being nasty, I guess. So What I found to do on this manifold to make the gasket line up and then give me enough maneuverability with the manifold to get its ports to line up with the head better was I went, you know, like I said, I opened this alignment hole up to 1/2 inch to match the others. Well, I had to go through on this manifold and open every hole up to 9/16. And when I open every hole up to 9/16, that gives me enough room, and I'm gonna have plenty of room for the bolt heads. Like these are big bolt heads, and we upgraded to stainless steel bolts the last time we did this because the last bolts were so corroded. Anyway, so that's not gonna be a problem. And there's still plenty of meat on here. Like from the 1/2 inch hole to the 9/16 hole, it really didn't take a lot of material. But anyway, I digress. Opening all these up to 9/16 has gave me enough room to get the manifold slid up, because as you can see before, I was barely catching the bottom of the ports. I mean, back here had more, that one had a little more, but that one, like, I mean, barely. I mean, both these was barely catching the port and actually sealing it. So this way, it actually give me enough room to move them, and like the actual head port where the soot is all at the tops of these holes, the manifold was actually sitting too low on the head. So this is going to allow me to push the head, the manifold higher up on the head to get better alignment on these holes. And now back to the gasket. And as I was saying about the spread of the manifold, its spread was not the best for this gasket. So I had to cut the gasket and do some relief cuts so I could move it in. Not a whole lot, it just, these needed to be shifted a little bit. In order to shift them, I had to cut it so I could shift everything to get these to line up mo better. And this will work with the head. I done had everything up there looking at it, test fitting it. This will work with the head, and that's something, if you run into this problem, you'll have to do that before you'll modify on all this stuff. You know, like, well, I'm just going to make this better and just slap it on there. You got to do comparisons with the actual engine, with the actual cylinder head you're doing, to make sure that your modifications are actually helping you and not a further hindrance. So take your time if you have to run into something like this. There's a whole lot of back and forth, a whole lot of look, and a whole lot of standing around going, There's going to be a whole lot of that. So if you find yourself in this situation, just take your time. But that being said, these are ready to rock and roll. These are good. I've got these to a place that I am happy. So I'm going to take them, throw them on the engine, then we're going to get the up pipes put back on and just carry on from there. I mean, we're golden. I mean, I need to clean up underneath these flanges. I need to take my little polisher underneath this, but outside of that, these are ready to go on. And since I already got the driver's side head tilted up, I'm gonna go ahead and throw that one on because it's 100% ready. So catch back up with y'all in just a moment. And no, I couldn't tell y'all what the torque for these manifolds are. I just been doing it for so long, I just kind of got a feel for it, and I just start from the center, work my way out, go. I focus a little tighter on the center ones first because these manifolds tend to get warped and twisted and all kinds of stuff. So after I get them all started and like kind of hand tight down, I always start at the center and really start bearing down and working my way out. But then like right there, by the time I got to the ends and come back to the center ones had loosened up a little bit where it had drawn the rest of it down. So, you know, I mean, I just feel it out, and sometimes I got to go over it 3, 4, 5 times before I get it to where it feels right. But once I get happy with it, you know, she's on there, she's done. All right. And I just put high temperature grease on all these stainless bolts. I'm still kind of experimenting with it. I know, like all this time I've been doing this, and I'm still experimenting on what I put on my exhaust manifold bolts, because realistically, I mean, Your anti-seizes, they do work, but what I've noticed on all these, you know, exhaust manifold fitting and stuff, whenever you put anti-seize on there, it kind of cooks it, and sometimes it actually kind of locks stuff together. But I don't know, it's a case-by-case study, really. But I've never had the high temperature wheel bearing grease let me down on this. It's never hurt me in this application. You know, you don't want to gob the hole full, and you don't want none on the end of the bolt because you don't want it to like build pressure in there and like crack something or anything. But as long as you just got a little bit on the threads, that way it can help lube it. I like using it for this, because that's what I had on it originally, and like this side didn't, all this side come out pretty dry, which it's been a couple years since we put it together. The other side over, a couple of them come out and they were still wet, so mint. But all right, I'm gonna put a little bit of lube on these threads. I'm gonna hook this this hose back up. Here we have it. Get in there. The up pipes, the new EGT probe in it. I hope it clears at the angle I put it in. It should. We got quite a bit of room on this side. This side over here is the one that's a little bit tighter to the firewall. This in here should have enough room because it's a 90-degree EGT probe, goes straight in there. So that one should clear. It's in there good and deep. Just got its little hole there. So yeah, put these back on here if they still line up. Oh yeah, it'll work. Got a plastic from a table off here, because Lord knows that table just has to fall apart. All right, you ride there for a minute. I've got to find bolts. The old up pipes are back on. This manifold here came with 2 new bolts, so I didn't have to worry about that. The old hardware was pretty much mangled. Like, both bolts that were still good were bent. Had big chunks of threads missing, so I wasn't even gonna bother with those. I just managed to, from, you know, the bolt rack over there, managed to just scrounge me up some matching bolts and nuts, threw them on there. So I mean, she's mounted. Yeah, part's good. Yep. So next on the agenda, let's see. I don't have the injectors in yet. Still waiting on them. I might just flip it over, get the oil pan off, get that cleaned up. Oh, I hate leaving the bottom end open for that long, like completely open anyway. I mean, it's got this hole back here, but that is what it is. I don't know. Waiting on injectors. I don't have an ETA on them. That's what we'll do. We'll get that oil pan off. Well, obviously we'll flip the motor over. Then we'll get the oil pan off. We'll get that cleaned up, get the oil pan cleaned up. We'll get this rear main seal plate cleaned up, and we'll go ahead and, you know, we'll get everything cleaned up. We'll get the bottom of the block cleaned up, ready to rock and roll. And then roll the motor over. I'll throw the chains back to it. Take the engine stand off. And then we will get the oil pan and rear main seal put back on. Let's see, I don't want to do this anyway. All right, see, because the way that seal's there, I have to have the plate on here first. So yeah, we'll do that. Roll the engine over, get the oil pan off, get the mating surfaces cleaned up. Now roll it back over. I'll pick it up. I'll put the rear main seal on, you know, seal it up real good, and then I'll get it back on the engine stand, get it flipped over. And while the silicone's still wet, we'll get the oil pan sealed up and, you know, siliconed real good and put back on there. That's what we'll do. Sounds like a plan. But real quick, I'm gonna do a little bit of shop cleaning because it's just what makes me happy. Yesterday we got the manifolds port matched, got them lined up a lot better. Got the new manifold on. We got our EGT port drilled, tapped, inserted. So we got the exhaust side of it done. Things line up, things bolt up. The new turbo will bolt up to the old pedestal, which should be the same as the new pedestal. But the turbo will bolt up on there, the exhaust will bolt up, it'll all hook up, it will work. The Banks brake fits with no clearance issues. So, cool. All right, now I'm gonna get the turbo pulled back off of it and get it out of the way so we can carry on downward. Fire. Now, I hear you ask, why did I just waste all that time heating the manifolds and the up pipes and the bellows and all this? Why did I just spend that time doing that? Well, I'm about to feed you some nonsense. Maybe it's not nonsense. I don't really know. It's just a little theory that I'm trying to bake up in my head and see if it works. Because you see, the up pipes and the bellows and the manifolds were all baked into a certain place. Like the old turbo over there, you could take it on and off as much as you want. You could undo this V-band, unbolt that, pull it off, put it back on. This would line up every time. It would just sit here. This is where it would stay. You could bolt it right up. It was great. But that turbo is no longer on here. And since that turbo come off, this manifold's been took off, holes have been bored out, manifold was adjusted, moved a little bit. This is a totally different manifold, plus the holes on it's been opened up, it's been port matched, it's been, it's sitting in a different location, plus it's a different casting. So different location, different casting than the old one, which has took the up pipes and has completely changed how they bolted on. Because when I unbolted them from the other manifolds, like literally unbolted them and they didn't even move, they just sit here. The bolts out, they just sit there. These, I had to spread them a little bit more, had to do a little tweak to them to get them to bolt on to these manifolds, which inherently changed the position of this Y. So when the turbo was bolted on here, this Y was not in the right place to just clamp on. And why is that a big deal? Well, it's not necessarily a big deal, but I want to put this in the same way I took it out, and the same way that, we've been in here and handled this thing a couple times. I want to be able to set the engine back in the chassis with the Y pipes already on the engine, ready to go. And I want to be able to put the engine in here, and then once the engine's in and the turbo is ready to go on, I can simply take the turbo, bolt it to the pedestal. This will already somewhat be lined up, and I can get the clamp on it easy, and I don't have to, cry and lose a bunch of sleep. Bust my knuckles, rip off my fingernails, stuff of that nature. So what I'm doing is heating this while everything's bolted together tight and in place. I'm trying to heat everything. I'm trying to let everything expand, grow together, and let these bellows and these pipes here, I'm trying to get them to learn a new memory. Long story short, that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to reteach these up pipes where to be. Because, like I said, if we just simply undid the turbo the way it was, this would have sprung back out of the way. It would have sprung back and it wouldn't line up, and then it would have been a bear to try and fight it into place. Because here on the engine stand, I had this bolted up tight, and it was a bear to try and fight that into place to try and get it on the turbo. I actually just loosened these up and then put it on the turbo, put the clamp on, and then I tightened those back up, which did help. But even with these unbolted, putting the clamp on and tightening it to the turbo, I still had to bend these a little bit. I still had to work the pipes a little bit to get them just to line up and bolt on. And like I said, if it's a little bit of a headache out here, it's going to be a lot of headache in there. So like I said, I'm simply just trying to retrain these bellows. Like I'm trying to give new memory to the metal by heating it and letting it cool off. I might even heat it one more time and let it cool back down just to see if it will all set and stay in this place. And that's a big reason why I was directing more of my heat at the bellows. So that way they would do more of the just saying, okay, I'm gonna stay here. Instead of being all like, I'm gonna be a spring and pop back whenever that V-band's unhooked. And then I wanted to heat everything else because I wanted them to cool down slowly. I didn't want to just heat these and get these really hot and then everything else still be cold and, you know, the metal around them suck all the heat out of them really fast. I don't want them to cool down fast. Like, typically you never want metal of any kind, especially cast, to cool down fast. So it's better to heat as much of the surrounding area as you can so it can slowly cool down, and hopefully, with any luck, will retain some of this memory. And even if it does move, maybe it'll just move a little bit. And then when it comes time to put the engine back together, you know, put the turbo on it in chassis and stuff like that, you know, you won't hate yourself. You know, life won't be miserable. That being said, life will start off probably be miserable. It'll probably fight me, but you know, like I said, I'm trying things, you know. You never stop growing. You stop growing the moment you quit trying stuff. You know, the moment that you give up is the moment you quit growing. So you gotta keep trying things. You gotta keep adapting, I guess you could say. You gotta keep learning. Yeah, ever quit learning, you're done. Never be scared to try something new. It's only stupid if it doesn't work. You're a genius if it does work. Remember that. All right, now I think I'm gonna hit this probably with a little more heat one more time. I'm gonna let it cool down and we'll get this turbo off here and we'll move on to other things. And no, I'm not worried about overheating the pipes because, you know, especially if this truck's towing, it's not uncommon to see temperatures over 1,000 degrees and then them staying parked over 1,000 degrees for a very long period of time. And I'm sure if you've seen any other viral YouTube videos or stuff of that nature, you've seen many vehicles where, you know, the exhaust manifolds and downpipes and turbos and everything just glowing red. I mean, look like candles, man, just back here just popping off. So no, I mean, as you can tell, they're not even glowing. Too much heat was not applied to the metal, and I tried to do it as evenly as possible. I tried to keep the heat moving, so no damage is going to occur from this said heating event. Like I said, I'm just trying to teach new memory pretty much into these bellows, because that's the biggest thing that's going to move is these bellows here. And I'm just trying to teach this new memory to them. So we're gonna let this cool down now. And as soon as it's cool, we'll come back and get turbo off. Do other things. Time to see if the last 5 minutes of footage is gonna get included in this video or not. Well, that comes off beautifully. Alright. Okay, turbo isn't immediately flying off. And, oh, yep, look at that, it stayed in place. I mean, it's got a little variance, which, I mean, you're gonna have, but, you know, we're also switching pedestals too, so, hey, right there, I mean, the proof's in the pudding right there, because that thing was way off. I mean, it was Like, you know, you got the turbo sitting right about where it's gonna bolt up at. And before, I mean, this thing was just, it wasn't even close to, I mean, it was closer to hooking up to this than it was to this. So, hey, proof's in the pudding. I'm either a genius or a mad scientist. Not sure which, but the heating did indeed work for what we needed it to work for. So, that's cool. Well, there, theory proven. Get everything bolted together, you know, get everything in place, bolt it together, throw a little heat to it. It will remember where it was, and you won't have to fight near as much whenever you're putting everything together. Genius. I know. Been great having you. I've had a good time. It's been exciting up to this point, at least for me anyway. A little aggravating. Is what it is. But thank y'all for stopping by. Leave a like and a comment down below. And I'll catch you on the next one.